All right, boys, let's go.
Welcome back to another summer and fall of the Northeast Offshore Reports. I am Jimmy Fee. I've got Anthony DeCicci here, and it is early July. So far to date, it hasn't been a banner season. We didn't have a great run in May like you sometimes see in New York and New Jersey. There were some fish. Not a real banner June. Last year, we had those fish that piled into the Regal Sword in mid-June. Guys were jigging 60-inch fish at will. None of that. But just over the last few days, we've seen some pretty good developments in the scene and the the midshore scene especially. Canyons are coming alive. It is the perfect time to get this report going. It's the perfect time to get ready, get your boat and gear together to head offshore. And Cheech, what do you have to say about that?
It's time, baby. I'm getting fired up for the offshore season. I haven't had a couple prospects that just didn't jump on board. It just wasn't happening yet, you know?
Cheech's fishing trips begin at the dock, where he's trying to find somebody to get on the boat with. He's always sweating a line in that regard. But I am still deep into striper season, and that's kind of my spring striper season's kind of coming to a close. The big push through May and June. I'm ready to go offshore. I'm ready for some tuna. I'm going to dry my striper tears, hopefully, with some tuna glory. The Northeast Offshore Report is brought to you by SiriusXM Marine. Fish mapping is SiriusXM Marine's most comprehensive plan and is available on your boat's display and includes access on your phone or tablet via the fish mapping app. Serious anglers use every advantage available, and SiriusXM marks the spot where bait fish gather and game fish hunt. Learn more at SiriusXM.com/fish mapping. Checking in with the folks at Sunset Marina in Ocean City, Maryland, you are seeing a lot of yellowfin hit the docks right now. They are seeing some excellent fishing out in the canyon. So their canyons close to there are Baltimore, Norfolk, and Virginia. Plenty of yellowfin coming in from out there. Starting to see some white marlin in the mix. And then there's just a couple bigeye to keep things a little bit interesting. But so far, that's been kind of the move. Going up to New Jersey, you have the boats hitting the canyons, and there have been some yellowfin being caught out there. The bigger news is a big push of those small bluefin that we saw a lot of last year, 30 to 45 inchers, that have moved into the midshore range. Talking to Mike Gleason at Tack Waterman out of Long Branch. He's a big jig and pop tuna guy. He said guys are finding them kind of pushing on the surface. And I've seen these videos on social media where it's not an all-out blitz.
Yeah.
Not like your typical slash of kind of like the tuna feeding. It's almost like you have these schools of hundreds, if not thousands, of tuna swimming just, a few feet below the surface. Making
nervous water,
making a whole big thing of nervous water, and you can even see them flashing, guys, just with cell phones. I can't imagine if someone got a drone over it, what it would actually look like. I'm sure somebody will. But you see these fish just coming down under the boat, 10 to 15 feet down, flashing on their sides, and they're hitting poppers. Mm-hmm. Seen a lot of videos of popper bites already this year, and not just one, like guys, triples and quads of poppers. Guys are going out and having big days with these smaller bluefin. They're catching them on soft plastics, both paddle tails and straight tails. And then when the fish settle in deep and you're marking them, they're hitting the regular metal jigs as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of those clips too where it's like guys up on the bridge and it's like they got a spread out and they're trolling and it's like there's the nervous water. They pull their baits just within range and all of a sudden, boom, 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 they're going off like fireworks.
And it is we saw these fish last year. It seems like a lot in that 30-inch to 45-inch range. And that is the perfect size for the jig and pop, for the light tackle tuna fishing, the spinning gear. You can catch a lot of them, and that's what you like to do.
I need a little taste, Jim. I need a little taste.
Also important to mention, at the early part of this year, there was a little bit of rumbling about the new tuna regulations. It was going to be one fish between 27 and 47 inches, that's a pretty narrow target to hit. Now, there are a lot of fish in that size range south of Cape Cod, but regulations like that effectively make it a catch and release only fishery for the recreational guys north of the Cape.
That wasn't the little taste I was looking for, Jim.
No, you get a taste of catch and release fish because you usually see the fish are 50 inches up.
Yeah.
Not always. I mean, you just see smaller fish.
Yeah, those are the ones you want to take home,
Noah heard from the people, there was a lot of kind of an uproar about this. So now the recreational tuna boats, as of July 1st, are able to keep one fish between 27 and 73 inches. So we've widened, the slot limit there. So now you can keep that larger fish. Still just one fish for the boats compared to last year we could keep three because we went over the quota and, debate on how accurate that is. I'm not going to get into that. But this year, keep one fish between 27 inches and 73 inches. If you're on a charter boat, you can keep two fish between 27 and 73, but only one of those fish may be between 47 and 73.
Choose wisely, boys and girls.
It is. You do have that moment where if you're looking at a 35-inch fish, you're like, is this going to be the one? Is this going to go in the ice, or am I going to hope I get a 45 to 50-inch fish?
There's going to be a lot of that this year. I want to hear from some people that are like, we went out, we got tight, gray light, first thing in the morning, 38-incher, we'll do better than that, and never saw a fish the rest of the day. I hope that's not a lot of people, but those stories will happen this year.
That's something I think a lot of hunters can relate to, where, if on the first day of the season you see a fish that you would be happy, or a fish, if you're in the woods, first day of the season, you see a deer that you'd be happy to take on the last day of the season. If you haven't gotten one yet, take the shot.
Yeah.
Put the meat in the freezer. So I don't know. It depends how often you're getting out there. If it's your one trip, you've got a fish that you can keep and put on ice, do that and play catch and release for the rest of the day. I wouldn't put it off and hope for future tuna rewards.
I could think of worse things to catch and release all day long than bluefin tuna and yellowfin tuna.
So, yellowfin are still their own.
True.
You can still keep, 3 per man per day. So there is some jig and pop fishing happening in New England, in southern New England. I see Cape Cod boats getting on them, but those guys early in the season, they're pretty cagey about where it's happening, and I don't blame them because It does get tough. You see what happens when you're in a big fleet. Last year we got out there in some big fleets. We're catching fish, but that window, especially if the fish are on top, if you have a lot of boats competing for fish on the surface, they're putting them down. You've got to wait in line or go find your own fish. So I've seen Cape Cod boats on Instagram posting good fish. They're putting out there that they've got open spots and the fishing's been good. So there is some of that run and gun fishing happening in range, but as for the wear, I don't have that yet.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the banter of productive fishing I've been hearing has been, that Regal Sword to Crab Ledge area. It hasn't been lights out by any means, or we'd be hearing a heck of a lot more of it, but that's been the zone where there's been regular catches from what I've heard.
So the boats that the people that we know have been out there reporting tons of life, as many mackerel as you could possibly want to fill the live well with, but mackerel do have a bag limit, so make sure you're staying within that. Seeing bait, seeing whales, and I did hear that there are some smaller recreational-sized fish at Crab Ledge.
Yep. I talked to Brian Weiss, a good friend of ours who, we share intel pretty regularly. He bypassed the inshore grounds. He headed with a group out to West Atlanta, actually Atlantis proper, out of Point Judith aboard a 36 contender owned by Alex Welch, with a fishing crew on board, and they had recently had a buddy that found some yellowfin and bluefin in the area, so they just decided to send it. They didn't have a ton of information. They left late Wednesday night. They found a handful of porpoises out there, pilot whales. They saw all the signs you'd want to see. They hooked some rat yellowfin tuna early, and then they doubled up right at 7 a.m. in the morning on a nice bigeye and a bluefin. The bigeye was 67 inches. It ate right along the west wall. Goggle-eyed, colored bomber CD20, and it was a pretty cool catch on the bluefin. This fish came up and went to smoke a bar. It missed it. His buddy started jigging the bar to incite, a repeat customer, and a 65-inch bluefin came up and smoked a calamari colored wingman bar made by Chatter Lures. That was Jake Gresh that thought on his feet to start hand jigging. The closest rod to him when that bluefin smashed that bar. So the big eyes definitely seemed to be around the area, they said. They couldn't raise them again. They went looking for tiles later on in the trip, but was distracted from a buddy boat that had bluefin on top. They hooked 10 or so on poppers. The buddy boat hooked like 20. It was captained by Dave Peppis and Josh Brower. And some of the other boats landed as many as 4 big eyes in that same area. So
the bluefin, was that in West Atlantis? The guys were seeing them on top?
That wasn't a far run from Atlantis. I'm not sure exactly where it was. And I asked him about the inshore bluefin. He says it seems scattered. There's been some chatter, which was confirmed by Robbie Taylor, of some activity in the Ryan's Horns area. Brian said he heard of a couple fish in Butterfish Hole and Real Spotty at Tuna Ridge, but we actually have intern Nick out there today at Tuna Ridge, and He's not doing too well. He's not seeing much life. Didn't see too much to, stop other than birds just doing what they're doing, looking. So they have a little bit of a fruitless ride, it sounds like, out there.
But you got to admire the guys going this time of year. When intel's sparse, if you're going to burn the fuel, you're going to burn the time. But somebody's got to be the first to find them.
I'd rather be out looking than here talking about it.
Definitely. So that sounds pretty promising. I saw some other canyon reports coming in from Captain Larry Backman. Posted some stuff on Instagram. Did not have a chance to talk to him before this report, but he the Instagram report was kind of alluded to everybody having tired arms after finding some what I think were bigeye.
Yeah, they look like bigeye. I only saw them in scrolling.
It was good enough that they trolled into the dark, got some bites, and then I guess they dropped some jigs on them. We'll try to get some of that intel in the written report of this, which we put up every Friday. We have a written component of this that gets a little bit more into detail with some of the people we talked to. So we'll get Larry's report into that.
I want to know if they got their swordfish because that was the comment by Andy Nebreski, is to save room for a sword. So, the bigeye, trend from last year seems to have picked up right where it left off out there. You have anybody else from down this way that you've talked to that's gotten out?
Nothing positive, man. I've had heard from a couple guys that took boat rides, but...
Anybody go to the dump?
Not that I know of.
Got it. I talked to Connor from Monahan's Marine. He said things are finally starting to heat up. East of Chatham is getting good with wreck fish from the Sword to Crab Ledge. Few fish north of there as well. He said he's heard of guys getting them on spin gear, trolling, as well as live bait. The Giants have been kicking around the Bay Bank and East Bank for about a month now, but have been very shy when it comes to eating. He said the water's on the colder side still, or at least it's been on the colder side. Obviously, with the temps, that's probably going to... already has probably changed some, so that should hopefully fire that bite off. Last few days have shown that things are getting going with a couple fish finally getting caught, and sightings of giants airing out and smashing pogies from the deep water off Gloucester all the way to inside the bay. That was another recurring theme from last year that we saw a lot of.
So that's been kind of a June, July fishery where you have these big schools of bunker that pile into Cape Cod Bay, and it's a kind of a cast at them if you dare kind of fishery, because these are big fish. These are 90 to 100 and however many inch fish. And they may very well turn on a stick bait or a popper, but are you one, geared up and ready to tackle a fish that size on spinning gear, or you could just do it on the 130s? And
if you're going to mess around with those with spinning gear, you're going to come correct with the class gear for sure.
But talking about giants showing up on bait, I've heard two reports now, and I guess half of what we do is rumor and conjecture, but guys inside Vineyard Sound who saw tuna blasting baits. One was a couple striper guys who were, I think, on their way to the spot and saw some tuna. They had nothing to throw at them. But there were a lot of mackerel throughout the spring, beginning in April. Up until now, you've seen Atlantic mackerel in Vineyard and Nantucket Sounds, which is kind of unusual. But it's going along with what we've been hearing of it being a banner year for mackerel. Lots of mackerel out there. You're seeing them in Cape Cod Bay. We're seeing them east of Chatham. And even in Vineyard Sound, there were guys who were fishing for bluefish, casting out the small metal jigs, catching these mackerel. So at least once or twice, I heard from a couple different people about those fish in Vineyard Sound. Not enough of them concentrated enough to be targetable, as you'd expect in that shallow water, but they're in the area code. So if you go south of the Vineyard, hit somewhere like the Claw or something like that, good chance to run into some giant tuna, and ideally some smaller ones.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy in the Sound like that. That's awesome.
And it was a couple years ago. It's funny where those first recreational tuna kind of show up year to year. Some years it's east. There was one trip a few years ago. You and I were out there on separate boats. We went to Monomoy, me and Chris, because we were going to maybe go fluke fishing. You were going to go fluke fishing, but tried some other areas south of the Vineyard first, and you found... At first, you're like, are these dolphin? What are they? It was just nervous water. You cast a stick bait out and it gets eaten by a bluefin right away. And you guys caught so many tuna within 90 minutes? So you're like, let's go change this up with some fluke fishing. Then you had a terrible day of fluke fishing.
2 hours. It was one of those things where it's like, let's go on the most insane route to the shoals. And it was a detour to the inside fingers and almost to the Claw. And we saw some porpoises and stuff. And I literally was like, I figured it was going to be a jig bite. So I told this 14-year-old kid who was the owner's son, I said, hey, get comfortable casting the stick bait. And first cast, he didn't even know what he was doing. I showed him with an air rod, just 3 turns real slow and sweep. He's like, I got one, and I'm like, shit, they're bluefish. But turned out he lost that one. Next cast, caught another, like hooked up again. I'm like, definitely bluefish, and then I saw the tail beating the rod. I'm like, that's a bluefin. And yeah, it was those cookie cutter 30 to 42-inch fish. It was awesome.
Yeah, so early in the season when the intel's kind of sparse, you just have to look at historical
Yeah.
data like that. I mean, one place they always seem to show up is between Crab Ledge and Regal Sword this time of year. The claw to the dump is not a bad place to look for them either.
No.
Especially as we get deeper into July. We're getting to prime time. We're not at prime time yet for the inshore bluefin. That sounds like Jersey is pretty loaded up with them.
Jersey's feasting right now.
We're going to hear more of that from the Canyon Runner crew as they talk about both the midshore and the offshore scene they cover from the Chesapeake, guys going out of Maryland, all the way up to Gloucester now. So
Yeah, I got a few reports, getting into New Hampshire and the main grounds too, so I'll hit that real quick.
This report is brought to you by Okuma Fishing Tackle. Whether you're battling big game offshore or casting from the shore, Okuma gear is built to perform when it matters most. Learn more at AkumaFishingUSA.com.
Speaking about east of Chatham, Bill McKim, the Persistence, one of the nicest sport fish boats in the Northeast.
Every time we leave Falmouth Harbor, I eye that with envy.
I want to just stow away on it. I don't think they'd find me until we were out
They
there.
probably got some pretty big fish boxes, so you might be all right.
They said that things were heating up east of Chatham. They got tuna, both trolling, ballyhoo, and drifting live max. It's been a Nat Geo with whales, which is where the whales seem to have really kind of settled in, which is usually a good sign. Bait, birds, and dolphins have all been present. The tuna have been airing out early morning and marks throughout the water column. The fish have been picky. It's been hard to pull them off the bait, but they are settling in, and it's a mixed bag of fish from 45 inches to as big as 110 inches. So it sounds like one of those typical sword bites where it's like early in the day you might have your chance at, a smaller fish, but as the day goes on, the fish get bigger and bigger. He said gear up accordingly. He said the bait that they were on were a ton of mackerel, and there were also sand eels present.
I love to hear about the sand eels. The thing about the sand eel bites is they'll start this time of year when the water's still a little bit cooler. I mean, cooler as far as tuna fishing goes. Sand eels are on the surface, so that brings the fish, obviously, and the tuna to the surface. As things warm up, as we get deeper into the summer, sand eels are going to go deep, and that's when you get those jig bites, which is my favorite. I love the jigging. Run and gunning's fun. There's nothing more exciting than seeing a tuna hit a popper or throwing a stick bait into a feed. But the consistency of jigging, that feel like every time you're dropping to the bottom, I'm going to get bit. There's just so much downtime between casting into feeding tuna when you're doing the topwater thing that I like having a lure in the water.
I go back and forth. When I'm in on a popper bite, I'm like, it's the best ever. When I'm on a great jig bite, I'm like, it's the best ever.
It's just tuna fishing in general.
Yeah,
the best
it's awesome. Joe from Fisherman's Outfitter in Gloucester, he said not much happening. He's really locked in. A lot of the guys that have been going out, the stick boat guys, they've been getting fish. They've been seeing fish. He said it's still been sporadic at best for the rod and reel guys. But he said the good news is, or the good signs are, that the bait is setting up in all the right places, though, and he thinks it's going to pop off with some consistency here soon. Another gentleman I reached out to and got a report from was Captain Bob from Seacoast, New Hampshire Sport Fishing. He's out of New Hampshire. He said the bluefin are late in arriving. It's been a slow start, but should like what they find as they get here. Some harpoon fish have been brought in here and at Perkins Cove, but many less so far than is typical for late June. In recent days, recreational-sized fish have been surface feeding on outer Scantum and southern Jeffreys on both mackerel and pogies. Few are chasing them so far due to the NMFS prohibition until that flips over here in July when this report hits. We plan to troll spreader bars for them early next month as the feeds are fast moving. Tough to pattern for a jig and pop bite, basically, is what he was saying. He said a few giants have been baited on southern Jeffreys, but the abundance of large poor beagle sharks is making that tough. On the plus side of a biomass of sand eels like they haven't seen in years, fattening up the herring and mackerel on Jeffreys and may promote some nice topwater action as the water warms. In short, a delayed start due to really cold water, but they have bait in abundance, and that should trigger some fun fishing as conditions get towards normal. All things are looking up, Jim.
It sounds like it's about to break wide open from New York through New England. and it's already broken open in New Jersey. Now it's just always a little curious of how many, when you see that big body of fish that settled in on the midshore grounds in New Jersey. We talked about it. Canyon Runner talked about it. Are those our south of the Vineyard fish? Is that where they're going to stay for the summer? If they find bait and temperatures to their liking there, that may be where they set up. Maybe they're not going to be off Montauk again this year. That's always
it's the most nerve-wracking time of the year.
It's the pessimist in me that's always like, they're going to be too far from us.
But on the bright side, you got yellowfin spread throughout the canyon. So you know what? Maybe that gives us a little mixed bag.
If they roll back into the dump like they did a couple years ago, and you have all the yellowfin like we had on poppers and on jigs, that'd be pretty nice as well.
What would you rather have, Jim? Would you rather have like the ultimate easy button like the gully was last year, where you could just pretty much guarantee roll out there and catch a bunch of tuna, or that bite that kind of moves around, but it's a mixed bag of yellowfin inshore and bluefin?
I want the easy button, dude. I want to go out there and jig 40 tuna in a day like we had a couple times last year. That would be pretty awesome. I wouldn't mind if they were a little bit bigger. I would like to get into some, after last year, kind of getting your fill of those 30 to 40 inch fish. I'm ready to tangle and have my will tested by the 60 to 80 inch fish again. It's been a while since I pulled on one of them on spinning gear or jigging gear.
What's the ideal class of fish? If you could pick the fish that you would settle on top of,
50 to 60 inchers.
Yeah,
that's enough to be like, where you're thinking about maybe I'm going to have to pass the rod on this, but you don't have to. You can do that yourself, and you can do it within 30 minutes.
It's just enough. Mm-hmm. It's just enough. I like that. When are you getting out, Jim?
As soon as I possibly can. There's a man upstairs in the corner office. I'm going to bother about tuna fishing for the probably every other day for the next couple months. We'll see if we get the bug in his ear to get out on the regulator or on the Skeeter. Both of those have HMS permits, and the Skeeter bait boat, when the fish are nice and close. We've done crab ledge on it. We've done south of the Vineyard on it. He likes to run that thing because it goes fast, but you need the right day. There's no radar on it, and it is a 25-foot bay boat, so you need no fog and you need calm seas. It's the regulator gives you a lot more range. So
I have, I think, CTE from the first time we left from Bass River and went to Crab Ledge, and then decided to cannonball over to Sword to see what was there, and it was between that trip and coming home.
There's still a little striper fishing I need to do in the surf before I go full tuna mode. But I don't know, man. As soon as I possibly can. Nothing on the books yet.
The inspirational emails to that corner office is one of the most entertaining things that I look forward to every year. Jim has well-crafted. I think you have email templates.
It's so transparent, because he goes like, you don't talk about fishing with me until tuna season every year, and it's we gotta invite him to stock trout fishing at least. We gotta start laying the groundwork for that before the tuna fishing gets good. But I'm gonna go upstairs and go say, hey Chris, tuna fishing's pretty good. And I'm gonna hear, oh. Well.
Maybe start with a striper email, Jim.
All right, we'll work our way up. But make sure you tune in every week. We're going to be putting one of these out. We've got the written reports coming out on Fridays. And thank you to all our sponsors, and thanks everybody who tuned in.
So without further ado, we're going to kick it off to the Canyon Runner team for a full rundown. The Canyon Runner Sport Fishing Team is here to help you catch fish. They offer coaching and concierge services, seminars, and the Canyon Runner map powered by Vim, which will exponentially help increase your catches inshore, midshore, and out in the canyons. The report they provide gives you a sampling of how Canyon Runner maps work, which serves as your co-captain, providing all the fish catching and safety intel, including a built-in warning system and more. It gives you the ability to track over 550 member boats and 25 pro staff boats in real time. Check them out at canyonrunner.com.
All right, Jimmy and Cheech, we're excited that we're back here with the Offshore Report again. Really excited about doing this. We love doing the Striper Report. Obviously, our bread and butter and what we live for is this offshore fishing. And we've had a very interesting start to the season. Our folks, our members have been fishing for months now. We had some very interesting things happen this last week. We still have some folks that just don't have a lot of action. Folks, like always, like we did all last year, we want to start with the weather, and we want to start with the big picture. We zoom out in our Canyon Runner map here, and we're going to look at the big picture of the weather pattern coming up this week. So we want to see basically what's coming across the United States and looking for big high pressure systems to probably set up what's going to be hopefully kind of a tranquil system. We look right now, Tuesday and a Wednesday, we're going to have this bad southwest wind. Anyone who remembers last year, ton of southwest wind all along the coast. But look at that big high pressure. What looks like, and it's preliminary, but it looks like we're going to have a big high push in Thursday. And as we zoom in, Friday, Saturday, we should just see some decent weather. Want to show you right through the weekend. Look at that. This is what we're looking at. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, praying that 4th of July weekend, we've got some great weather. One of the cool things we've implemented in here in this map, as I zoom in, we're just going to put this kind of the center of all our members and all our fishing and everyone watching. We're going to compare. We're going to compare days of weather and forecasts. We told you last year we look at multiple forecasts. Here's 4 forecast models. Here's the wind. There's your Tuesday stuff. But as you look out, what's interesting, normally you don't see this. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all the models are in agreement this far out that it's going to be tranquil. So I think we're going to have very rare holiday weekend of great weather across the board. So let's now get into the fishing. We want to start with the water as we always do. This is a shot of Sunday's action with our boats. We'll get into that a little bit. But here's a composite shot of the entire, here's your Gulf Stream. What we're looking for, as always, are these big eddies. Here's one right here. There's another one out here. We could hide all our members in our pro staff menu. There's actually a third. They're lining up, but they're pretty far away. If we show you the fathom lines, we're going to see that we've got, here's oceanographers. Here comes your first eddy. We're going to have Munson's, Welkers. We're going to have an eddy coming in here the boats are going to go to. But what's interesting is we don't actually really need an eddy. What we look at in all this water now, due to the heating that we had for the last week and a half, everyone knows the warm temperatures in the Middle Atlantic and Northeast. Look at all this water. It's all 70 degrees up on the bank. Down here, it's up into the 80s. So when it's like that, folks, we want to look at chlorophyll. This is today's chlorophyll shot. Look, this is the Gulf Stream. Here you got eddies, eddy, but listen, this is this bluish color right here, the blue water up here. These are clouds and fog, but this blue water shot up. It plumed out like a mushroom. This blue water came in here, down here where our boats fishing out of Maryland, Delaware fishing. This little bit of blue water is enough. And what we've seen this entire early season was no real water element, no eddy that fed us anywhere into here. So we watched our boats, our pro staff fishing out of the Carolinas, catching fish in April into May, and then slowly these yellowfins started migrating up into the into the Norfolk. And then that's when everyone kind of got, their attention really peaked up, and we knew that it was only a matter of time till your Maryland, Delaware, South Jersey boats had them. And it literally, the fish just slowly migrated up the Washington, the Poor Man's, the Baltimore. And then as of today, which was kind of one of the most interesting things talked about amongst all our pro staff, there are more yellowfin spread out today than we've seen in almost any time in the 40 years we've been doing this. There were yellowfin caught consistently, same amounts, not huge catches because they're spread out from the Atlantis canyons. In every single canyon you see here, we had boats. From every canyon, from Atlantis down to Norfolk, there was yellowfin caught in all these canyons. There was yellowfin caught in 40 fathoms inside some of these canyons. They've spread out. What's also spread out are the big eyes. And you can see there, again, there's no one feature. There's a couple places that look better than the other. But when the sun came up on Sunday morning, any boat out in 150, 200 fathoms seemed to have a big eye bite. There are big eyes in the Atlantis, in the Dip, in the Hudson, the Toms, the Lincoln, the Wilmington and Baltimore, all had big eye bites, all spread out. Very interesting, very unusual. Let's get to what is going to go on the rest of the week. Offshore, probably the same old, because there's just no water ML coming. It's going to be spread out. We're going to pick. There's going to be fish in every canyon. There's going to be big eyes in every canyon. But what we really want to talk about is what's going on midshore and inshore. Now, this is a range from the last 6 days, from the 23rd to the 29th. I'm only touching on this to show you some of the stuff up off of the Cape and to the east. Now, look, this year, I'm happy to say, we have a lot more pro staff fishing up this way. We have 2 boats out of Gloucester. We've got a boat out of Point Judith. We've got J&B Tackle folks. We've got a couple other pro staff in Montauk that will be fishing way to the east. Now, this is a week's worth of activity. You don't see a lot of boats out here, but our pro staffs and our members that fish here, and some of them fish a lot, there's just nothing going on yet. There's no bite, but the fish are there, particularly the big fish. The harpoon boats have done quite well. The rod and reel boats, it just hasn't turned on yet. There's a random fish over here. If you remember, you can click on and see all the different wrecks. Here's the crab ledge area, the Regal Sword. There's been a random big fish caught up in here. There's been a very random big bluefin caught up this way. There's been smaller fish seen, but that's been about it. And unfortunately, that is the story right as you come down around Nantucket, south of the Vineyard, and south of Block. You see all these track lines. I left all these in here. This is a week's worth of people covering all these grounds, and they've found nothing. They caught nothing. Even up to this day, on Sunday, they've caught nothing. There's been boats going back and forth into the canyons, and yes, we're catching the canyons. I just mentioned what's happening here. There's fish. There's big eyes. West Atlantis has been very good. Atlantis and West Atlantis, both very good. People are catching as we speak. They caught all day. They're going back and forth, and only on one random day were some fish caught in here in 60 and 50 fathoms. But there's been enough effort and enough people looking. It just hasn't happened yet here. But now where has it happened? What we've had consistently, and we're going to leave the chlorophyll chart on here just to see. We see this water pushing in here, and maybe this has pushed in some of the fish. For weeks, this blue water was way out in this area right here. And these areas, particularly the Hudson, was just loaded, and the Toms and the South Toms, loaded with bluefins. We had one of our boats, the Fortuna Runner, in 4 trips, caught close to probably 150 bluefins out here. And then we knew these fish don't stay out here. Those schoolie bluefins push inshore. It seemed like the bulk of the fish were in here. So guess what happened? About middle of last week, the canyon started to dry up. It no longer was automatic getting out here. And then magically Wednesday, Thursday of last week, they popped up on the triple wrecks, and they popped up over here. And we're going to go to our just plain navigation chart. They popped up over by the Virginia, the Maiden Creek, the Bacardi, and that triangle. And they've been there now since Wednesday. And unfortunately, we had a 3-day blow with a nor'easter. The folks out here, we put it to them. We thought maybe these fish would move for you in that northeast. Sometimes they swim right into that east wind. Boats got out there yesterday, and they were right there. They're right around the Virginia, the Maiden Creek, a little bit north of the Virginia, a little bit north of Bacardi. And today, on Sunday, one of the biggest interesting issues we've seen, like with anything, if you're fishing on inshore and midshore, you're sight fishing. You're running and gunning. You're looking for life. Today was one of the worst fog days that a lot of people have ever seen in this area. We know the fog up in New England's, it is legendary. You don't really have it that thick, and as long as we had it today, it lasted till 1:30. No one caught anything. The second that fog lifted, people had fish up on top. Not everyone caught, but if you were lucky enough and you're in the right position and you got finally a mile of visibility, a lot of people had double-digit bluefins again today. And again, it was the same area. If you come in here and click, here's the Virginia, here's the Maiden Creek. It's been right in here. Here's the Bacardi. There was fish caught here. Triples last week, the northern end of the triples, by the Haskell and in here was really good last week. We had boats there when the fog lifted. They didn't see much. But we had action in this area, inshore of the Toms. And it seems like, and what always happens, folks, is those fish are settled in now. They're in 30, they're really in 40 fathoms. They're settled in that they're not going to really go back out to the canyon. There's going to be a few bluefins caught in the canyon, but this is it. They made their first big move inshore to 40 fathoms. It is very likely they're going to make their next big move into 30 fathoms and hopefully 20. So they get close. We had a very disappointing like spring ghost fishing, though I wouldn't call it a ghost anymore. They just really weren't here. They were here for a week. We've had a lot of folks that just haven't had the fish in their range. This is now in range for a lot of our folks, and this is in range for the folks to the south. What was interesting today, maybe this is a pattern. We've got our fingers crossed on it. There's a few boats. We see the Fortuna runners back out down here inshore of the Linicol and the Spencer. We had a boat even further inshore. This is 3 days in a row now. 40 fathom yellowfin fishing. Is it possible that the big spread of yellowfin and the fact that there's no big one eddy or significant water feature on the canyons, the yellowfin are going to move and migrate inshore? That would be an excellent development for a lot of people, and we hope to see it. But right now, what we're going to look at and what we're going to stick with offshore is the big spread of fish for at least through this week. And then if we go back to the water temperature chart and you recall this eddy out here, and you are going to see probably 4th of July weekend, and towards the end of this coming week, there will be boats out in these various canyons. We've got Munson's, Powell, Lydonia, Gilbert, and oceanographers. This water is getting pushed right in here. Some of our longline buddies are out here right now putting it together, and the fishing is very, very interesting. A couple cool things you guys are going to play with this year. We've now got one really cool feature. You can actually see the wave heights off our boats. Here's a boat right now fishing inshore the Lindy. They're catching. You can see the real-time water temperature and the wave heights. So if we have any significant issues with cloud cover when we're doing one of these, remember, if we've got boats offshore, we can see the water temperature. Just as a heads up, as we're just going to finish off to the south here. Again, mentioned this already, the fish were spread out. Today, as you can tell, the bulk of it was right here in the mouth of the Baltimore. One of our pro staff, the Marley, Captain Marcuse, had a really good catch in here, but it was just like a slow pick all day. He literally was headed home with like 5, and on his troll home, he picked another 4 more. It sounded like a great trip, but he was happy to have 5. And then he just got jumped with a few more. Most boats catching 2 or 3. Everywhere you look, most boats catching 2 or 3 just because of how spread out it was. Captain Joe Trainer on the low profile. Like everyone else, he was one of the boats. Remember how we started this? You were in the canyon this morning around 5:30, 6 in the morning, and you were in 150, 200 fathoms. You got a big eye bite. He got a big eye bite. Then he finished off with some nice yellowfin fishing. Unfortunately, as we move down the line, and I'll finish off with this, since it's on here, here's the yellowfin trunk. We're going to take this off, go back to the nav charts. In here, this is the hot dog and the sausages. Teacup. Last week, we had a lot of bluefins in here and even some yellowfins. Perhaps those fish have all swam up the line. And now that we've got some bluefins even like inshore of the Toms, maybe that's where they came from. And the yellowfins that were in here might be the yellowfins that are inshore of the Spencer. But this kind of dried up. Now, traditionally, not in the last 3 or 4 years, traditionally, this is when bluefins or yellowfins settled in right here. Folks would pick on the troll right up until the tuna tournament out of Ocean City. They'd start chunking. Love to see that happen again for these folks. That would be nice. Got our fingers crossed on that one too. The long and short of it is we got a long 16, 20 weeks of fishing left in us. This is just the start. It is a way better start than last year. Again, I know not for you folks over here, it's not yet. But overall, the amount of bluefins, the amount of yellowfins, significantly better than last year. I'll tell you right now, our pro staff boats out of Ocean City, it's June 29th. They've already caught more yellowfin on June 29th this year than they caught the entire year in 2024. That's good for everybody. That means there's a big biomass of yellowfin. They have spread out, and hopefully they continue to do it. We're going to get the feed from that eddy offshore, and it should be a great, great year. On that note, pass it back to you, Jimmy and Cheech. Look forward to next week, folks. Take care. Bye.